Well, one, I think he's hilarious and he writes great stuff. But when I saw the headline of his latest Townhall piece, Rest in Peace, Karen, and it was all about how this thing's coming to an end, I was so excited because I really hope that's true. But I also listen to Chris's podcast. And so the first question I have, first of all, Chris Stigall, thank you for joining the show.
Hiya, Grace. How are you today?
I'm great. But my first thing I want to ask you about is that you just did a podcast about woke fascism and all these corporations in America, dealing with the Georgia elections, and all that kind of nonsense that they're sticking their noses into. And it really drives me nuts. It's not so much, Chris, that I care about the woke Twitter trolls who freak out about racism and whatever, Aunt Jemima's on the syrup bottle. I get that people are going to do that. But what you pointed out is it's the people at Delta and Coke and the MLB that bow down to these trolls that are the problem.
Yeah, it's going to become the new front. I mean, it's always been a bit of an issue, but it's not ever been quite like this. We've seen Amazon, we've seen the NCAA certainly do this a couple of years ago in North Carolina. They're doing it to Christie Nome in South Dakota. Yeah, now Delta, Coke, Major League Baseball. In Missouri, in Kansas City, where I come from, when the Josh Hawley thing came up during, the insurrection back on January 6th, Hallmark and Commerce Bank that are headquartered there, they went after Josh Hawley's PAC. So corporate interests are now weighing in and choosing political sides in ways they didn't used to. And I think it's largely driven by the woke young culture inside these companies, but in many cases, too, the leaders and their corporate boards who go to the white wine spritzer cocktail parties and are big left-wing donors. So it is something we'll have to contend with, but I've come to the conclusion that I think in a lot of cases, maybe we're just going to have to call their bluff, right? Because what are they going to do? Move? Are you going to leave Georgia and move to where? The more hospitable and affordable New York or something for your headquarters? I don't think so.
Exactly. And I'm always just amazed that people get themselves into these situations where one day the head of Delta is saying, oh, this all looks good. The bill looks good. There's some things that could be improved. And then the next day he's saying our family here at Delta, we're going to make this crystal clear. We won't stand for this. And Chris, the ironic part is that a lot of this talk about voter suppression has to do with voter ID. And I don't know about you, but the last time I got on a Delta flight, I had to show my ID quite a few times.
Yeah, well, in fact, I just flew Delta this weekend. And let me tell you, not only did I have to show ID, but I was standing there at the TSA. It wasn't Delta, but as I'm standing there at the TSA and getting my crotch fondled by a rather husky gentleman in a TSA uniform, I kept thinking to myself, so there's a family from Guadalajara being put up in a hotel and bused to God knows where here inside the country. They came in here unmasked, carrying Lord knows what, and they're being furnished and all expenses paid. And I get, I get the royal treatment here, getting groped and fondled and showing my ID. I'm treated like a prisoner. I got to mask up, and we're felons in this country, for heaven's sakes. And, Delta is screaming and yelling at Georgia for asking to show ID at the polling place. It's absurd. And here's the thing, Grace. We all know it. The voters know it. And whether you're black, you're brown, you're Asian, you're white, the voters are overwhelmingly, you've seen this, every poll shows it, voters are overwhelmingly supportive of what Brian Kemp and Georgia's doing. So they can just, Delta can shove it where they fly, as far as I'm concerned.
But Chris, another part of this that I find funny is I somehow stumbled on a Joy Reid monologue last night. Don't ask me how. And she was, going on and on about how Republican gossip and, Republican fake outrage has real world consequences. And I was actually laughing because I was thinking, well, all of this woke culture does have really serious consequences. And a really great example is when you look at Chinese leadership meeting with, Anthony Blinken and basically saying, well, you guys have tons of issues there. You're racist. You're part of the patriarchy. You don't treat your citizens right. And he kind of had to just take it because that's what the Democrats have been pushing for decades now, is that we really are evil. Like you said, we're all felons. It's everyone else in the world that is wonderful.
Yeah, of course, that's laughable because in China, when you disagree with them, they just imprison you and literally skin you alive. It's such a laughable comparison that China would lecture us on our human rights abuses. I mean, it's not even comparable. It's just laughable and silly that China would make a comparison. But of course, they're trying to exploit the division. And China, by the way, owns a lot of these corporate interests, influences a lot of these corporate interests, sows a lot of this division through social media. They literally actively sow this division to exploit the rifts and say, well, see, you're no more perfect than you attack us. You're not perfect. But, I mean, these are people that, everybody understands. They make people disappear. It's not even close. It's just silly to compare the two.
But it is strange when you see people like the guy at Delta or Coca-Cola or Mark Cuban. They're so brave and they're so woke when it comes to talking about Trump or talking about Governor Kemp. I mean, they are just social justice warriors. But when it comes to condemning China, there's pretty much crickets for that. Chris, I do want to ask you about something else here. And I'm speaking with Chris Stigall. He has a podcast, The Chris Stigall Show, which you guys should all check out. It's phenomenal. And he also writes a lot for Townhall. Let's get into this piece. I love the title, R.I.P. Karen. Rest in peace, Karen. You go through here. You really think this thing is coming to an end, despite the fact that maybe some people don't want it to end. You say it's inevitable. It's almost over. As someone who, I'm going to get a little selfish here, Chris. I want to get married and have a big wedding in November. I read this piece and I felt kind of hopeful.
You should. And I'll tell you why. Not because I say it, and not because anybody in conservative circles is saying it. Joe Biden has said it. Joe Biden's CDC has said it. And I would encourage you to shove this piece that I've written in the face of any well-meaning left-winger who disputes it, because this is now coming from Joe Biden and his CDC. This is not a conservative talking point, Grace. Here's what we know. Let me just go through these stated facts. And I cite sites, by the way, and I cite CNN and CNBC. I have links in my column so that everyone can read it. It's not coming from conservative, not Fox, not Grace, not Chris, not Talk Radio. This is I've researched all your favorite left-wing sites to prove my point. The CDC said this week that vaccines, if you get both, are 90% effective. Right? The CDC said this week, if you get the vaccines, if you're fully vaccinated, you cannot carry the virus, nor can you pass it on. And most importantly, Joe Biden promised that every adult in the country who wanted this vaccine would have it by the end of May. So you take those three components, you put them together, that tells me the need for masks, social distancing, regulations, shutdowns, lockdowns, all of it is over effective June 1. Now, that's being more than generous, but I say by June 1st, every adult who wants this vaccine, and I stress who wants it, is completely safe per the CDC, per Joe Biden's CDC. How do you see it any other way?
Well, I agree with you there, and I know that you're just going off of facts here from, like you said, some people's favorite liberal websites. But there's also an optics thing that's happening that I find amazing that you touched on a little bit earlier in this interview about the border crisis, because we are now being told, like you said, we're felons, put your mask on, put 2 masks on, don't get near anyone, you can't have any gatherings with 250 people, or, you can, but not 251. The list goes on. And then we look at the border and all of these people are coming in, and some of them are getting in-person learning. They're all very close together. So you do mention that, Chris, as, part of this optics nightmare for the Biden administration.
Yeah, well, that's insulting. And that's why this week began, if you remember. It's like every day feels like a year, doesn't it?
It does.
If you remember the beginning of the week, it started with Rochelle Walensky, the CDC director. It was very odd. Remember, she started the week by saying that she felt impending doom.
Yes.
And Biden held, he had that weird slurring press conference where, please wear your mask, and he was begging the states to start locking down again.
No joke.
That was Monday. I mean, really bizarre stuff. But by Tuesday, all those studies that I just mentioned all came out. And they basically contradicted all the pending doom stuff. So it's like, and here's why they opened the week on Monday in a panic about the about the pending doom stuff because of the border. I maintain that the American public, they're trying to continue to fan the flames of panic about COVID, which is overwhelmingly positive news, because they don't want you paying attention to that hellscape that's going on at our southern border, which is a real crisis. Still in all, the good news is, as I just said, per their own data, and I'm not pro-vaccine personally, but per their own data, if you take that vaccine, you're bulletproof, right? So Joe Scarborough freaking out this week, you idiots, you cavemen who won't take the vaccine, you science deniers, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter, Grace. It doesn't matter if I don't take it. It doesn't matter if the guys who cross the border don't take it. If you take that vaccine and Joe Biden promises you're going to have access to it by into May, you take it, you're bulletproof, you're safe, you're good, and you can't pass it on to anybody. That's all you need to know. You don't have to worry about anything anymore. Like, it's over. So I don't want to, the southern border's a problem. That's not over. But COVID as an issue is over.
Now, Chris, before I let you go, and everyone should check out Chris's stuff at Townhall and check out his podcast, The Chris Stigall Show. The last time you were on, you said something that really stuck with me. You were watching your kids struggle with the Zoom learning and all of the shutdowns. Do you think kids are they getting hopeful again? Are they feeling like this thing's coming to an end? I just remember you saying you felt like you were complicit in kind of abusing these kids because they're so depressed from sitting at home.
My wife, since we talked, I was so proud of her. My wife actually wrote a brief speech. She was granted by the benevolent school board dictatorship. She was granted the privilege, along with the other citizenry in my community, the privilege of going to speak to the Attila the Hun chair-seated school board, where she gave a 4-minute speech, and she was just brilliant. It's her birthday today, by the way. Happy birthday, darling. But she went and she just ripped him a new one, in an eloquent and a polite way. But she just tore, and that very night they voted to let the kids back into school. I'm not saying it was my wife's speech, but we had a little give there. The community finally rallied and pushed so hard that the school board had no choice. They caved in. And they reopened the schools. Now, of course, the minute there was a bit of an uptick in cases, they closed again for spring break. But it broke. The dam broke here, finally. Now, I know that's not the case for a lot of kids still, but there has been a bit of a break. So the mood has lifted, and things have changed a bit here where I live. I know that's still not the case for a lot of kids, though. So it is still a critical problem, and it's the worst. Now they're already talking about this damn vaccine for kids.
I know,
and Grace, and that's just not been the subject. Kids have not been carriers; they've not been vulnerable. That's not been a subject that we've even been having. And now all of a sudden we're talking about kids like they're vulnerable. I think that's a racket, frankly, but neither here nor there.
It's all part of the panic porn, Chris. Hey, Chris, where can people follow you on Twitter if they want to find you there and read your stuff?
It's my first and last name, all one word, Chris, C-H-R-I-S, Stigall, S-T-I-G-A-L-L, or if you go to chrisstigall.com, all my social media, all my links, it's all there.
Thank you so much for joining the show, sir. We hope to have you on again soon.
Thank you, Grace. Have a great one.
You too. I love having Chris Stigall on. He hits every single thing, and he doesn't leave anything out there. And, if you guys want to read his piece, rest in peace, Karen. I hope he's right. I really hope he's right. Allergy season is here, and that means one thing. You need the Eden Pure Thunderstorm air purifier. Warmer temps are creeping up, and you're going to want to open those doors and windows. But you open the doors and windows, and you're so happy because it's the warm air, and, it's springtime, and then something unexpected happens. Unless you're Jared. He expects it every year.
Yes.
Jared, what happens?
All that pollen and all those irritants come right in through the screens and the windows. If you put the screen door up, it comes through there. And even if you take the allergy meds, you still have to deal with the scratchy throat, the runny nose, the eyes, all that stuff.
Allergies are your kryptonite.
They are my kryptonite.
That's a superhero thing because Jared likes the comics.
Very well done.
Thank you.
But if you have the Eden Pure Thunderstorm, that is the answer to the kryptonite, which I think red kryptonite is harmless. But that's neither here nor there. Yes, the Eden Pure Thunderstorm is great for your allergies. Take it from me, an allergy-ridden comic book geek. When I want to breathe and I need to, I love the Eden Pure Thunderstorm.
And right now it's well under $100. The Thunderstorm air purifier really works. As Jared said, it sends out super oxygen and ions to kill odors in your room and purify the air. Whether you have pollen, pets, kitchen, musty basement, tobacco, any unwanted odors, you need the Thunderstorm. And right now you can get it for its lowest price available. Just use code word GRACE. You'll save an additional $10 off and get free shipping. Go to EdenPure.com, click on the radio banner, and put in code word GRACE at checkout. You get $10 off the sale price and free shipping. That's EdenPure.com, radio banner, code word GRACE. Don't miss out on this deal. We'll be back on the other side with more. This is The Grace Curley Show.
You're listening to The Grace Curley Show.